saw that. It's tragic.
Yeah, that's not ideal.
I don't remember where exactly. I was reading an article about it.
Well, that's not yet, so you can enjoy this for now before it gets here.
Yeah, that's awesome.
All right, we are live and
That doesn't
streaming whenever you're
usually
ready.
happen, that's rare though.
Sorry.
That's really like one.
That's like, I'm from I really enjoyed those.
Last year, it actually did happen last year, about 1 week, but then it was like looking.
That's always been. You'll send me the AD video? I don't want to be able to.
Ready whenever you are. It's up and live, so.
Okay, let's get started. I'm back. John will be back soon, I promise. But for now, you're stuck with me again. Looks like here's a loop of Milton. Oops. We can restart that really quick.
It starts on the 4th and it goes through the whole life cycle. And I'm using a different color scheme than I normally do because we had a short network outage on, was it Wednesday morning? And I lost like several hours of it, of the other color map, so. It's
It'll
over
start
there.
right around here, and then make its way up to Florida, where it hit the most on the 10th, which was yesterday, I think. Yeah, look at that, all right, that was almost perfect.
It's even better too after passing by the Yucatan. There's pretty cool. That was when it was Cat 5.
And then plenty of outflow ahead.
Yeah, the
which
rain
we'll
out
see here
to
in
the
a
east of
second.
it was really interesting. I don't know if that counts as like a like what hit North Carolina for Helene, but to the northeast, I don't know.
I don't know, I see people calling it the outflow, but I'm not an expert on hurricanes, so I could not
It was
tell you.
definitely raining pretty hard to the north and east of the actual storm itself.
Nice, okay.
Anyways.
I'll touch on more on that in a second. Anybody see the aurora yesterday? Pretty cool. Yeah, nice.
Miss Aurora?
Yeah, exactly. Here's a view from the cameras.
Yeah, it was between about 9 and 9:30 that it was real bright. It was off and on overnight, but not quite as bright.
Cool. We've had a lot of big ones of those this year. Hope you got to see them at some point. They're really cool to see in person, especially when you get out of the city. It's a lot darker to look at.
It was pretty cool. I got another one too. It's, to the west, looking over Cape Brandon.
Over Brandon.
Hello. Anyways, we can
Pretty cool. I mean, it was a pretty strong one. Most of the U.S. got to see them, which is pretty rare. That's pretty great. Okay. Can I start with the surface map, please?
Sure.
Oh, could you go do 1 hour?
An hour ago?
Yeah, I think this one is.
Sure.
Okay. Here's where things stood pretty recently, about an hour ago. See, across the U.S., it was pretty good conditions for seeing the aurora because there's almost no cloud cover at all. We had a few scattered clouds this morning. I can't really tell if it's still there now, but last I checked, it still was. We're some of the few people with clouds, except for maybe like the northeast, and then, as usual, in the Pacific Northwest. But otherwise, pretty clear skies, pretty fair conditions across almost the entire U.S. There is a cold front draping through that's slowly making its way here. You can see this both by the fancy lines that are drawn on, but also in the dips in these pressure lines and in the shift of winds, where we start kind of southwesterly and then it shifts to northwesterly. but not too bad a change in temperature yet. You see, we're sitting at a cold 71. It's supposed to get fairly warm today, but the other side of the cold front, they're in mid-60s, a bit in the 50s, so not too bad yet. Okay. If we go to the goes east, please. The continental U.S. one.
So I guess we probably
Oh,
want.
yeah, can I do the Midas?
Yes.
Yes. Awesome. Okay. So, way over here, this is the remnant of what was Milton. It moved through Florida, hit plenty of Florida, died out for a little bit, and then it kind of almost strengthened into what this is now. Yeah, so once again, chugging along just as we saw it. You see some of the spotty cloud cover over the U.S. Otherwise, this is likely, kind of along that cold front, but it doesn't seem to be really precipitating, just some higher clouds at the moment. And then there's this little bitty disturbance that's kind of hanging out in Oklahoma, Arkansas. It almost looks like it's spinning a little bit, but both in the observations and other surface maps, there's nothing really there. So I don't know if that's some just smaller mesoscale wind circulations or what, but it's nothing of note. Just interesting that it looks to be spinning just a little bit for no reason at all. And then, as usual, we have our convection along the IT-CZ, still bubbling, still going. And then a little band of clouds over Florida, right where Milton went through. So these poor people in Florida don't even get the sun after all that they went through with Milton.
Are they still putting out alerts on Milton?
I don't think so. I looked at the hurricane map and I saw that there was a Leslie, but I'm pretty sure that is like
I think that's, we
it's
have farther
one of
out.
these two.
Hmm.
But no, I haven't seen anything on Milton yet. But it looks to be re-strengthening, or turning into something anyway.
It's kind of moving towards the southeast. Would that be something if it moved around?
Yeah.
Restricted,
I guess we'll
be
see.
bad.
It's weird.
Yeah.
Okay, so speaking of Milton, can I go to that picture I had you pull up? Milton not only hit Florida as a hurricane, but its outflow dumped, or provided, I guess you could say, a whole bunch of tornadoes onto Florida. Here's a map. All of the tornado warnings that Florida saw associated with Milton within the span of like 24 hours. There were, I believe, what I saw, 133 tornado warnings in Florida, only associated with everything that was in Milton. So you get hit by, a tornado or two apparently at this rate, and then you get dumped on by a hurricane, more winds, more rain, etc. So very bad. You can't even see like the counties or anything else in Florida. It's just basically walls of tornado warnings. So many. So yeah, that's a note because you almost never see something like this. That's wild. Okay, if we go to weather.gov, please. Not a lot going on in the U.S. You can see Alaska. They are under a storm warning, this weird bluish purpley colored. Their whole coast is under storm warnings. I'll show you what is causing those here in a second. But for now, could we scroll down to observe precipitation? And then, as you might have guessed, we're going to look at Florida. So if you could close this one, and then precipitation, oh, we got hit in Naples. And then, could you back this up to October 10th, which is when they saw most of the rain. It might take a second. What?
It didn't break.
It didn't rain, no. There it goes. It's probably taking so long because they got so much rain.
Yeah, the graphics load slower when there's more.
Yeah. Yeah, so you can almost see exactly where Milton went through, almost the middle of the Florida peninsula. As I showed you last week up in the Carolinas, this whitish color is greater than or equal to 10 inches of rain alone. So Central Florida was the bullseye, got poured on with rain, and then it gradually decreased outward from that. Almost a perfect representation of the path of Milton, which is pretty cool. Yeah, even areas, around it, this lighter purple is 6 to 8 inches of rain. So, even if you were kind of far out from Milton, not that insignificant amounts of water was hitting your area. There's a lot of flooding going on in Florida, even areas that didn't really see the biggest impacts of Milton. So yeah, a lot went on. Okay. So now that we have that, quickly, I'll go through all levels, what we saw this past week. So if you go to the Super Peaks, please. The 250 loop. Just see what's going on. Last week, we saw a jet stream that kind of hovered on the US-Canadian border. And up until now, kind of similar, except this time we're a little bit wavier, a little more variations going on, which is nice. That's going to give us a lot more weather to look at, talk about. We're not just looking at nearly zonal flow. So let this restart. This is from last Friday until now. You see, we do get a bit of a wavy pattern moving through. We saw a trough move through here. There are some jet streaks starting to develop and move through in the southern US, which I don't believe we saw much of last week. So that's interesting. We're starting to move back to that, the beginnings of maybe that two-jet structure soon enough. And there's also a pretty large jet streak off the coast of the US. This is the current time, right now. And so that is maybe likely tied to what's helping Milton redevelop, reignite, rebuild everything that's going there. So yeah, with this setup in mind, we go down to 500. Okay. Yep, so if we start out last Friday, you can see this low that moved through that brought us the cooler, more fall-like temperatures that we saw this past week, which is pretty nice. However, those were a bit short-lived as of today, where I think the high is supposed to get up to about 80 maybe. Yeah, at this level, we'll see why it's going to heat up here in a second, but for now, let's move through. You can see a bit of Milton move through Florida, but not a lot of it. We'll see more of that at the lower levels. And then up here, you can start to see what's impacting Alaska and why they're under such storm warnings. Because already at 500, we've got, let it load up, a pretty deep low that seems to be forming. So let's see how low that goes. I'm going to skip down to 925. So straight to the surface level, 925. Here we go. Right off the bat, we saw that low that brought us the cold front last week. Thank you. It moves out. You can see Milton as it goes through Florida. This makes, and then, yeah, okay, this is last week. There's a high kind of over Missouri, Arkansas, that area. It's weak flow, but there is a bit of a southerly flow that is helping us reach these warmer temperatures that we saw a bit of yesterday, but mostly today. However, I don't think the warm-up is going to hang around for long. I'm sure Patrick will tell us more about that momentarily. You can see associated with the low up here, there is another cold front, as you saw in the beginning, stretching through, about to make its way through our area. And then also note, this is about, like what, this morning? So as current as we can get on these, North America is almost surrounded by really deep low pressure systems. We've got one off of the coast of northeastern Canada, chugging influences all the way down, almost to where whatever's left of Milton is. And then on the other side of the U.S., we've got a super, super deep low that is impacting the coast of Alaska, putting out plenty of storm warnings for them. This is heights, but I know on the pressure map, when I went and looked, it was down to 954. I think that's about the lowest it's supposed to get before it starts, weakening, getting a little bit higher pressures. But, still pretty notable, still making it really, really windy and pretty stormy for those that live on the Alaskan coast. With that, I think that's about all I have. Are there any questions? If not,
I saw something that the 5-day forecast for Milton missed landfall by 12 miles.
It's insane.
almost a perfect forecast from the NHC. If you didn't hear, Grant said the actual landfall track of Milton missed the projected track by only 12 miles, which,
On a 5-day forecast.
yeah, a 5-day forecast. So 5 days out, they got the hurricane track almost perfectly, which is really, really impressive. So shout out NHC.
They're going to blame us for getting it wrong. like
Well,
always.
yeah.
Tampa was spared the biggest of the storm surge because it went south of them, so the winds were blowing the ocean out instead of in. But the Rays ballpark took
Yeah,
a
they
hit.
took out Tropicana Stadium.
Yeah.
But if that's all that happened, then that's
Yeah.
better than what was thought.
Yeah, right.
Okay. True.
Thank you, Libby. I will start at weather.gov again. And I'm going to sound like a broken record, but we're going to go to Phoenix for the billionth time because they're still setting record temperatures. So if we could, yeah, perfect. And then you'll see here's the forecasted highs. This has been true for 17 days in a row now. It looks like 1, 2, 3, 4. They're going to get 21 days in a row of forecast record highs, which has never been done in any city in America ever since records began. The previous record was during the Dust Bowl in Iowa. So this is how anomalously hot this period has been for Phoenix. And you can see they haven't had any movement of air for a couple weeks in a row now. So there's air quality alerts because the air is just sitting on top of Phoenix and all the pollution is not moving. On top of that, you're in the desert, so you can imagine there's some dust as well in that air. Hot, hazy, there's a ton of pollution. You can't go outside because it's over 100 every single day. Sounds absolutely terrible to be there. But on the weather plus side, so they've had 138 days of 100 Fahrenheit or higher. You can see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 4 more days of this. Gets them pretty close to the max amount of 100 degrees or higher days they've ever had within 3 days. So if we have 3 more days of the year over 100, Phoenix is going to tie their all-time most days over 100, which I think is fitting. You might as well set a record if it's been this terrible for 5 months in a row now. And the product of all this heat, if we could go to that plot I sent. The product is they're having one of the warmest starts to fall ever, along with most of the western United States. So we'll see that here. I made a plot from Iowa State. Here we go. So what this is showing is this is the average temperature ranks by climate districts, so not exactly counties, but a cluster of counties. And what you're looking at is August 31st to current, or yesterday. So essentially you're looking at fall climate temperature rankings. Average temperature rankings, 1 being this is the warmest it's ever been, 132 would be this is the coldest start to the period. So you can see, along with the desert Southwest, very notable, all of these 1s indicate it's the warmest start to fall ever. And 132 years of records for all of these places. Florida is also under the gun, it's been the warmest start to fall ever. And then a lot of the upper Midwest as well. I think we've noticed it here, we're the 11th warmest, which, that's not, it's not number 1, but it's still pretty notable. It's been very warm here for a while, and we've had highs above average for a long time, especially over the upper Midwest and then southwest, also Florida, warmest start to fall ever. So if the trend continues, if we keep getting heat over the desert Southwest, you can imagine this record's not going to fall, or it is going to fall. They're going to not fall out of the top warmest fall ever. I should stop saying fall because that's confusing, but most likely they're going to have their warmest fall ever based on what has been happening, what will happen going forward here. So on that note, it's been hot. I'm going to talk about a cool down that's forecast, which is nice because I haven't been able to do that yet, and it's already mid-October, which is kind of crazy. So if we could, let's see, go to the AOS forecast pages, please. And could we pull up both the 500 and surface loops? I'll stay on these here. And I'll start with 500. And if we could go to hour 18 in the forecast. So we got a sense of where the troughs and ridges are currently. And this is a look at, overnight, 1 a.m. local time. You'll notice most of the United States is under zonal flow. There's some feature disturbance off the western coast of the United States. We saw it was raining and cloudy. That makes sense. The beast over Alaska is huge. Look at this. You can wrap up the vorticity a couple times. This is almost exactly what I saw last week, if you remember that, where you could wrap around this vorticity, 3 or 4 times before you get to the center of the low. This little feature, which you look at the big picture and you're like, okay, great, there's a huge trough over the eastern United States, one near Alaska. This is what it's going to bring our cool down. Just this little blip in the geopotential heights. You can see it's a mini trough, and it has quite a bit of vorticity surrounding it. But this might lead to a snowstorm over the northeast after it passes over us. And I'll show you that here in the forecast. But this is what's going to bring our cool down, this little trough feature. So at the same time, if we could go to the surface at this 18-hour forecast, please. So we'll see, I'll just point out, a lot of precipitation associated with both of those gigantic low pressure systems. Here is the beginnings of our cool down. You might look at this and say that, there's really nothing there. There is a minimum, there's an L, which is minimum pressure, but it's not anything significant. It's like 1,020 hectopascal. So it's not even really a low pressure system at this point. But you'll notice what is interesting about it is it's sitting above the 540 decameter line. This can be used as like a rain-snow proxy, but in this case I'll use it as we have colder air and this low is sitting in the cold air. So what it's going to do is it's going to bring all this cold air down towards our region. And that's how we're going to get our cool downs from this feature, which looks like nothing 18 hours into the forecast. So if we could go to 500 again, and I'll step forward to hour 42, so about a day forward. That little blip, if we could just go back actually, like just a couple clicks, I guess I missed that. So that little blip, is nothing significant. All of a sudden, it gets swept into the main wave train, and we have a decent vortex strip on the upstream side of it, and it deepens into a pretty nice trough, you'll see. And this is situated nicely over us because if the trough axis is, from Hudson Bay, maybe down into Iowa, we are in the ascent region. It's not particularly strong ascent at this time, but we'll see on the surface there is some forecasted precipitation as this thing moves over our region. Anytime we get a trough, we can imagine the thickness will decrease and we should see lower temperatures. And we'll see that if we could go to the surface at this same time, 42 hours. So we'll see, you don't even see it, but all of a sudden, 42 hours, now we have some sort of lower pressure region, and we have forecasted precip. Here's that 540 line, this solid yellow line. So if you use that as a proxy for rain snow, this is snow forecasted, and it's right above Minnesota. So it's close. The rain snow line is close to us. Thicknesses are decreasing. You can see the gradient of thickness is really strong, especially over the upper Midwest, indicative of a strong thermal wind. You can imagine we will eventually get some pretty strong lift from this feature here. But the main thing at this point, 32 hours, this is Saturday evening, is light precip, cooler temps as this thing begins to develop. We could go to 500 again, please. Then we'll go to hour 60, so we'll watch this feature. Becomes a pretty significant trough. We see now it has really strong curvature as opposed to just 18 hours ahead. Nice vortex strip right at the base of this trough. A lot of vorticity gradient, especially over Michigan. And now it's beginning to dip, over Chicago. So we're into the coldest thicknesses at this point. And this is Monday at 0Z, so this is Sunday evening for us. We're into the really cold air at this point. If we could go to the surface at the same time now, so 60 hours, we'll watch this feature. Still, there's not really any low pressure perturbation associated with that feature, but there is a precip max associated with it. Here's that 540 line that I keep pointing out. So if you use that as a proxy, this is all snow. Or it is snow just above the surface, and that's a bullseye right over Michigan. There even might be some flakes flying into northern Wisconsin and northern Minnesota. Sunday evening, so 2 days from now. It's 82 now. We'll see the temperature forecast. That'll be my last point, but a huge cool down forecast for our region, finally. And we might start to bring down those fall warmest records because you can see most of the upper Midwest is under these colder thicknesses, reaching all the way down into Missouri at this point with this cool down. And then if we could do the same thing, let's go to 72 hours at 500, please. So we'll see that here's this vortex feature. Still remains potent, very nice curvature. Here's your trough axis. You might imagine New York, parts of Pennsylvania and up in the Northeast would be under that ascent. Divergence aloft, convergence below, some precipitation forecast. And we are still under the influence of this trough, so temperatures remain cool into Monday. If we could go to the surface then at the same time, 72 hours. You'll see here's the precip max. And now we have that 540 line well into Indiana, Ohio, well past our region. This little maximum in precipitation just off Lake Erie forecasted to be heavy snowfall for New York. So this is going to be the first flakes in much of the Northeast, maybe even parts of Wisconsin and Minnesota. You'll see the lowest thicknesses, maybe not on this map, but if we were to draw a line, from pretty far north in Canada, the lowest thicknesses are just to the north of the Minnesota border. So that's where your coldest air is in much of this continental look here. And so that's a testament to how cold this air is. And if we just step forward from this to 0Z on Tuesday, you'll see here's this blob of lower thicknesses that remains over our region, especially northern Wisconsin. This might be, again, some more flakes flying in northern Wisconsin, maybe even coastal regions of Lake Michigan, although the lake might do some things to prevent that. We have a significant development from that trough feature. Now we have a nice cyclone, very heavy precipitation, both ahead of it and behind it. And if we see the thicknesses, and we'll see this in the precip forecast, this is going to be a significant snow event for parts of Quebec, actually. Very heavy snow, and we'll see how much here going forward. But a nice cool down is going to impact us at least Monday, Tuesday. You'll see on the heels, though, we have a really nice thermal ridge. So you can imagine this is going to be short-lived, unfortunately. But we will see temps might fall near or below freezing for our region, which will be nice, especially after 82 today. And we see sort of the same picture. Now we'll have this low pressure will move off the coast. We still have a storm in Alaska, and then ridginess and high pressures mostly over the continental United States. So even though it's a significant development, brings a lot of cold air, it's not really going to change the weather patterns too much. It'll just be brief. And so if we could go to tropical tidbits now, please. We'll look at the rain snow forecast. Give us a good sense of where is there forecasted to be snowfall. If we could go to forecast models, and I'll just use the GFS, and this will be perfect. So at this picture, this is about current. You'll see high pressures pretty much everywhere. If we step forward to that hour 42, this will line up with what I was showing. So here's our, perfect. Here's our precipitation. You can see not a lot of pressure perturbation, but it's they color the 540 line and below. Lower thicknesses, colder air, colder column. Potentially, this is rain or snow, mixed precipitation. If we keep going, we'll see this precipitation feature move. Here's, oh, can we go one back? That's snowfall for northern Wisconsin. If we keep going forward then to 60 hours, you'll see the 540 line has moved past our region. Very strong cold air advection, especially over Illinois. It'll be cold and winds straight from the north, so Sunday evening might be very cold for our region as well. And if we keep going to 72 hours, you'll see, look at this. There's some snow forecasted in Pennsylvania, New York, into upstate New York. I'm not sure if this is lake effect because you have a cold air mass over lakes that are probably still pretty warm. So you can imagine a lot of clouds and precip would develop. It's cold enough for snow, so this might be a heavy, quick burst of snow for places, you know, right off the lakes over the northeast. And then if we keep going just to Sunday evening, Tuesday evening, perfect. You'll see here's your development of significant snow and rainmaker for the northeast. This is really cold rain. If we could just click on, you know, just somewhere within these lower thicknesses, we'll get a sounding. This is 35 degrees and it's raining. So we might see some snowflakes, and then there is some rain forecast for our region. This is gonna be, you know, rain in the 30s. So it's gonna be a drastic change from what we've seen for a while now. First shot of really, really cold air for our region, and then if we could exit out of this, please, and just go one click forward, you'll see very heavy snowfall forecasted, where you have the precipitation, warm air being lofted, and it's colder on the backside of this low pressure system. So here's going to be significant snowfall for parts of Quebec and Ontario. So we might see some snow from this. If we could go to now pivotal weather, I think has the best look at we'll just do a run forward and see how much snow is forecasted to fall from this. And that'll be my last point I'll show. So if we could go to, I think it's winter, yeah. And then we'll just use 10 to 1 total snowfall. And if we could, let's go to like hour 60, just see what this shows. Forecasted heavy snow from that little blip that we saw over northern Wisconsin. See parts of New York, Vermont, especially the higher terrain is most likely going to get snow from this event. 4 inches of snow from this. If we could go to hour 72 now. Here we see, you know, more portions of the northeast, heavy snow, 4 to 6 inches. This is going to be very wet snow because it's not particularly colder in the column, and so significant snow event. If we go to hour 80 then, or 84 I think will work, we can see large portion of eastern Canada getting into snowfall, and it looks like even some developed, maybe flow off the lake in the backside of all this cold air. Now we have 2 other snowfall maximums, just, you know, right into the UP of Michigan and then in northern Wisconsin from this event. That's not going to happen, but it's cool to see 8 inches of snow forecasted for parts of our own state. So if you're going up north this weekend or early next week, it's going to be very cold. It'll be cold over us, but it'll be colder up there, with potentially some snowfall as well. And let's just do this for fun. Let's go to hour 384. Let's see.
The Michael Morgan.
Yeah.
Forecast.
Hey, the West.
Look at that. This is what you want to see. Don't take the snowfall for, you know, verbatim, but the trend of we see now snowfall being forecasted, a lot of snowfall being forecasted. You can imagine there's going to be systems that will come in, they'll be cold enough to produce snowfall. Unfortunately not over us, aside from Kenosha or Racine right there, might get some snowfall, but you know, a lot of this is not going to happen, obviously. But it's fun to dream, to see that some colder air can infiltrate into the lower 48.
Phoenix is going to get no snow.
Yeah, no snow for Phoenix. That you can lock in for sure. I'm confident about that one. Even parts of West Virginia looks like forecast for some stuff. So, any questions or comments? That's all I had to talk about with the snowfall. Yeah.
Can you look at a different model?
Oh yeah. Do you want the total snowfall or like where we were looking at just short terms.
Yeah, especially like with the short term, like by the lakes.
Okay, yeah, sure. Let's go to the NAM. So it looks like they're getting the same maximum areas, something in border of New York, Pennsylvania, upstate New York. Definitely a lot of this might be mountains now, so you're getting more fine scale. Looks like snow lower into Wisconsin, but not as much. This is probably more accurate. Even this might be some, too much snow forecasted. For sure, though, there is going to be a bullseye snow just to our north in Canada. It looks like. And then, was there one particularly you wanted to see? Okay, just one more, yeah. I have a bad habit of only looking at the GFS, so, yeah. So interesting, watch for some snowfall, pictures of snow. Anything else anybody wants to see? All right, well, thank you, Pete, thank you, Libby, we'll see you next week.